Well, in part one, you were having a special meeting in a small little castle with spears
Apparently.
and stuff like that. James was with you.
Yeah.
You were there.
Yeah.
An American was there who was an advisor to JFK.
Yeah.
And who was the fourth person?
Our other friend.
Who has
He's
now
just
left us.
He's gone. He's no longer there.
He ain't here anymore. But the good news is he has decided, hopefully he will talk to us at some future period of
I
time.
hope so.
So what essentially did the Scottish thing have that was so important to you?
Bloodlines.
Now this is quite interesting because at the Amash conference, one of the witnesses, a guy called Jeff Scott, said practically exactly what James was referring to about uniting two reptilian bloodlines. That's the Judaic shape-shifting reptilian, what some people call the fake Jews, so-called, and then there's the Jewish reptilian, so the reptilian Germanic bloodline, the Thor, and that is something which this particular guy, Jeff, discussed on his presentation at the spring conference for the MASH project, which I was formally involved with.
Okay.
Since we seem to have rather a lot of reptilians in the MASH project, but we'll leave that out. So what does this mean?
Where do I start? In 2002, I lived in a place called Bosham, and that's where I used to cut vinyl for Sony. And my friend rang me up and he said, "Oh, you want to get down the church? It's on the news. They're holding court proceedings in the church." So I drove down there, went up to the door, and these barristers were walking out of the church.
What's the significance of that, holding a court proceedings in a church?
Well, I asked them what they were doing. "Oh, we can't tell you." And there was two really old historians there, and I asked them, and they said, "Well, there's a historian called John Pollock who's deceased. He's died now. He was quite old, and he wrote a few books and pamphlets about King Harold, claiming that King Harold was buried in Bosham Church. And in, I think it was the 60s, they lifted up the slabs and they saw some bones there, and the bones were under the archway." Now,
but there's important things about King Harold, isn't there? There's other stuff about this. Could you go into all that? Yeah, continue.
Well, I then said to the historians, I came out with something, trying to get them to tell me some information, and I rang my mum, and I said, "Oh yeah, I'm down at the church, TV. There's a TV crew here, they've held court proceedings." And she said, "Oh, you should come and look at your family tree," which my uncle had in Kent. She said, "You're actually related to King Harold." So I then told this to the two historians, and I said, "Oh, I've just been on the phone to my mum. She said there's a family tree, blah, blah, blah." They said, "Can we see it?" I said, "Well, yeah, I have to go and get it." So went off to Kent a couple of days later, came back with this family tree, and certain members of my family had traced it back to 827. It's on YouTube. If you type in King Harold 1066 family tree, I just filmed some of it with the video camera, and it's the only film on YouTube that shows this. And it showed that I'm not the direct descendant of King Harold. I was descended from his older brother who was murdered, Harold then became king because his sister Edith was married to Edward the Confessor, and Harold's father was best friends with Edward the Confessor, an advisor to the king. And that's known as the Godwin or Godwinson family. And my family owned all the land below the River Thames. I then wanted to find out if Harold was really buried in the church. So I approached the church. But before I did that, I met the historians and John Pollock in Bosham Church with Meridian Television, and they interviewed me for the 6 o'clock news. I was famous for 2 weeks. It was quite fun.
Yeah, but that isn't done without cause.
No, and we then did. Well, I went to see the vicar at Bosham Church, and as soon as he looked at me, he went, "I know exactly who you are. Can you get out?" And he slammed the door in my face. And I was surprised, shocked, annoyed, because I wasn't trying to cause any trouble for anyone. I just wanted, family connection. I'd like to know. And the diocese didn't want anyone to know who was buried there. It was all stopped. And their excuse was, the bones, you can't expose them to the air and all this other stuff. It's King Harold. That's all you all need to know.
Bearing in mind he lost that battle.
Yeah.
Does this mean it has significance to the current royal family?
Yeah,
and
it does, because there was it the Battle of Stamford Bridge when there was infighting going on? So you think all these soldiers had to walk 200 miles? I don't know how far. It's at least 200 miles. So the whole of the British Army is up north. You've got William the Conqueror in France waiting to sail over to England. Now, history tells you that they had to wait for the sea to be calm for them to come over, and they just happened perchance to turn up at Hastings when the army wasn't down here. But if you do a bit of digging on the internet and look at who's descended from William the Conqueror, you'll come up with names like Nathaniel Rothschild, which I don't think many people know, but you can look it up. It's probably on Wikipedia or something. So I started looking into all this, and I was like, "Oh, that's quite interesting." Let's have a look at the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. So a few of my friends, we studied the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. We found a letter from Harold's wife. It was like a poem, and it was talking about Harold being buried so close to the water that the waves would overlap his grave. So if you think about if that is true, then Harold can't be the one in the church. So I set up a sort of time.
Would that be symbolic? Would that be a symbolic burial? Because obviously his grave would have been washed out to sea years ago.
I don't think what we piece together, and a lot of this is speculation, but we've tried to put a lot of logic behind it, is that when William took over the area and Harold's estate, we think that his mother begged William to allow her to bury Tostig, Warnoth, Swain and Harold all in the churchyard. We don't think William would have wanted that, because it would have turned into a shrine. And you look at how many people visit Waltham Abbey. No, he wasn't. I would tell you, I don't believe he was buried there at all. They say his skull's there. I don't think it is. So I then spoke to John Pollock again, and I told him what we'd found. And I met him there. It's a shame he's not alive today. And he said to me, he took me down into the crypt, and he said he believes that Warnoth and Tostig were buried in the crypt. If you look up the steps going down into the crypt, they look really old and worn. And as you come up, there's a newer floor. So we think William allowed the bodies to be buried into the floor, and they laid another floor over the top, which raised it up a bit. And he said to me that he'd brought in scanning equipment to the back of the church, and he reckoned he did the length of this body buried at the back of the church, and he thinks that Swain, who I'm descended from, was buried there. Because the body is at a slight angle but pointed straight towards the altar in a place which means redemption. Now Swain was a bit of a nasty character out of all the brothers, You just Google the history of Sweyn Godwinson. He did some nasty stuff, but he tried to redeem himself, and he was told, I think Edward the Confessor said to him, if you go on a pilgrimage to Turkey, come back, go and do it on your own, come back, you'll be redeemed. But he was murdered when he got to Turkey, and the body was brought back, so we believe. Now, I set up a time team, and we then found some more writing from Harold's wife that said that she came down with a boat, went up to the water's edge where these 3 big slabs were. They broke one of these slabs, pulled it aside, reached in, pulled out his body, took it off the Chester, buried it where no one will ever find it. We found 3 slabs, 1 broken, a pot of coins. I've never told anyone this, but it needs to be said, I think. We pulled out the dagger and the sword, King Harold's sword. It's rusty, it's hidden away.
How do you know it's his sword? What's significant?
It ties in with our research through the Anglo-Saxon chronicles and the writing from Harold's wife. I can't guarantee to you 100% that that's Harold's sword, but I've held it and it felt right. And I locked it away. I gave it to someone that to look after it, keep it in the best condition they can, where it still is today. There's no way I was going to hand it to the National Trust or anything like that, because it just didn't feel right to do that. But the question...
Why not hand it to the wonderful National Trust or English Heritage? What do you feel about that?
Don't trust them, really. Hopefully it'll be presented to the world, but in the right way for the right reason one day. But that left the question, who's buried under the arch? If only if that was Harold's body that his wife took up to Chester and buried, and we did find his sword, etc., we know there's bones under the arch, and the church did everything they could to stop them being dug up. Who is it? So we went through kings and queens, found out where everyone was buried and who was unaccounted for. And the only other king that you'll find where people say, oh, he's here or he's there, is William the Conqueror himself. Yes. So, if you can't dig up stones to find out whether something's there, why not try dowsing with a pendulum? Where I know you've had experience with dowsing. In the right hands, it works. So I went there and I tried it, but I felt a bit biased. With my heart was telling me anyway it was William the Conqueror. So
that's difficult then.
Yeah, but I wanted to do it first and then bring people in that didn't know the story, and I would just ask them questions. And on about the 15th question, is this William the Conqueror? And I brought people in from all over the south. I brought a woman from Brighton. She's about 80 odd, and she's been dowsing her whole life, very trusted dowser. Didn't tell her the story, brought her into the church, went through kings and queens, even said silly names, Is this William the Conqueror? Every person that I took in there to douse over that grave said yes. Is that proof? To some people it's proof. To some people it's a load of old gobbledygook.
Well, until we get the DNA evidence.
Yeah, which we may never get. So then you think about William being a Rothschild or having that bloodline. He then went on to build a certain amount of cathedrals around the country. Including...
Anything special about those cathedrals? Are they trans-dimensional devices?
They're built on very powerful ley lines, because I've been in some of them, and one of them is Windsor Castle. He added to that greatly. Have you been to Windsor Castle?
Yeah, I was knighted a Knights Templar in the church at Windsor Castle. But so, I don't think that was a real deal, but something happened.
The Knights of the Garter are based there. The so-called Committee of 300 meet there. I've been there a couple of times and had a good look around and found it to be very interesting. You know, very interesting place.
In what way was it very interesting?
Just the geometrics of the insides of St George's Church and who's buried there. You know, the Queen Mother's buried there.
Yeah, but what's the significance about that? I mean, does it make it? I'm looking at a hyperdimensional
it's just
situation
part of
where it's shifted in reality somewhere.
It's just part of the ley line system of the balance. You know, you've got two sides to balance, as we all know. Their side of the balance is control, isn't it? And if you look at the ley line system, which is part of Salisbury Plain and Stonehenge, which I say is part of the control panel, if you draw a line from Silbury Hill, the ley line runs straight through Windsor Castle into Buckingham Palace.
Does that connect with Windmill Hill as well, and those other forts in that area?
That's all part of the same system. So yeah, I have a strong connection with King Harold. But if you look at other parts of my family tree, Harold's wife was the sister of King Canute, so you've got the Danish bloodline. On the other side of my family, I'm related to the Queen through the illegitimate child of one of the King Georges. I can't remember now. I don't really care for it, to be honest with you. So,
but what's the significance of this thing about uniting the bloodlines that we initially started with? What do they need to do that for?
I don't understand it. I don't know. If I did know, I can't remember.
I mean, this is the thing about James.
This is what I would like to know.
Yeah, I mean, he's maybe a special clone. The whole thing with his situation recently is that basically they've got his DNA, they don't need him anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking at a time when James seems to be currently separated from his wife.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions myself still.
Such as?
Still. I'd have to start talking about the other thing that he mentioned earlier, which is to do with our bloodlines. And it wasn't, mine was traced back beyond King Harold. You go into Somerset House, they've traced it back over 4,000 years. Cool.
Can you do that again?
Yeah, they've. You go into Somerset House, my bloodline's been traced back over 4,000 years. It's back to Egypt, back to the Temple of Karnak in Egypt. And there's connections there that, I meet a psychic person or a clairvoyant and they look at me and they freak out and come out with things that I've heard from lots of them, but I don't understand it fully and I'd like to. And how do you ever find that stuff out? I don't know. But you're going to start asking me tricky questions now, aren't you? But I don't know enough of the answers to really talk about that, or I just know.
Okay, a lot of your work involves the secret space program images and also the crash landing of a reptilian crash landing that James referred to.
So cool, yeah. I
mean, the story about that is basically that there was a reptilian prisoner that was being flown back.
I thought it was a grey.
Yeah,
I was told, and I can tell
crashed.
you I've heard this, but I cannot confirm that's what was there. I spoke to the police. I was there. I was in the car park. I remember talking to the police again, being told to leave. We were the only civilians that turned up.
I mean, this is meant to have happened at an ordinary civilian airport, a grass track airfield near Chichester. Is this here? Was it at this airport?
It's been mentioned already on the internet, so I could probably say yes. It might be.
So just to our right.
But I'll tell you what happened.
Right.
I went the other side of this hill. I spoke to the police.
Are you talking about this hill here?
Yeah, I spoke to the fire brigade.
The other side of the hill that we're looking at.
Yeah. Now, when I was told to leave, I came into this very car park.
Were you there by yourself?
No. I was with our friend who was here earlier. He was the one that said he saw something fall out of the sky from his garden and rang me up and said, oh, let's go up on the hill. And I thought he was just out for a jolly, you know, pulling my leg. And I thought, why not? I'll come with him, you know. So we came up here and were met with lots of flashing lights from the police, the fire services, the military. And I went up to that hill with a pair of binoculars and looked down, and I saw floodlights, big white lights, people searching the fields in military Land Rovers. But that's all that I could see was happening at the time. Then came back into this very car park, stood over there, looking at the sky, and from up there came down a silver triangle shaped thing that seemed to come down from very high above, came down to about 2 miles, had a real weird multicoloured trail behind it. Out of the front of it came this green light, and it went as far as you can see, around there, over to that valley, came up past the trees, about...
Which valley?
Over there, beyond the race course. Can you see?
So beyond the race course?
Yes, first, I've never told this story. Beyond the race course, up here, over this road, across the grass, no higher than 20 foot off the ground, the size of a big transit van, or maybe a small, well, no, maybe a Luton van or something. And it came straight across this car park within, I don't know, 20 feet of me. My other 2 friends were still looking over that way. I've got a camera in my hand, I couldn't move, you know, because this thing's silent, and it's a big green ball, like a fluorescent light, green fluorescent light. And it came past me completely silent, over this barrier, and up the hill, straight over to the other side. Couldn't speak, couldn't move. It's like time, existence as you know it just stops, and everything you thought was real just falls apart in your head, because it's beyond anything you've seen before, you know. And the fact that it was completely silent, it just puts you into shock. You know, it's all very well seeing a triangle coming across the sky when you know it's been built at Area 51 or wherever, but something like that you can't actually see that it's a solid object or what it is. I don't know, it's just... And
that was...
What are the words
that was here
for
to
it?
pick up its buddy, was
Sorry?
it? Was that here to pick up the prisoner, or the guy?
One would assume so. Yeah, one would assume so. And again,
so
that film...
let's recap in terms of what that incident was. Can you just give us a 1, 2, 3 of what happened
what
there?
It was?
Or what is claimed?
Claimed not by me, though.
You're saying that...
I never claimed anything. I don't know how much to say on this, because it pulls other people into this that don't know I'm talking about it, that were sort of involved, really. And it's not.
Now, what do you mean by
fair
sort of involved?
Well, the witnesses.
So there was a multiple witness event.
Yeah.
Of a aircraft crash with an alien
film
on
it.
board,
Someone else did.
And recovery of the alien. That's what we're talking about.
Someone else filmed it. But when you look at the film, I don't know. You see this light, which is a white light. You see 3 or 4 of these tall, dark shaped things walk over to the light, pick something off the ground. As soon as they touch it, all their hands glow up, which you can see on the film. They carry this thing to one side and stand it up. A lot of people said that these tall, dark things were firemen. Well, I've shown still pictures of this to firemen, and I've said, if you were standing next to this light and someone was filming it from this angle, what would you look like this? And they say, well, where's all the reflective stripes? And there's nothing. The only thing that ever lights up on these people are their hands and their heads, tops of their heads.
Now, what colour do they light up? In what way do they light?
White. But when you go through the film, frame by frame, and they all stand and look in a certain direction, you see a picture of, I don't know, they sound so stupid saying this, but like they've got these wings, like they've got these little horns on the front of their heads, like their chins are elongated and they've got long necks and long legs. Now, I can't tell you what they were because I didn't actually go up and speak to them. I just know that's in the picture. Now, James got this picture given to him and he published it on Avalon, Godlike Productions, Alien Earth, all these other places. And it was then sent to, what's that guy that did the Dulcie papers? Branton. He then sent the picture to Branton. Branton wrote something about me on his website, and someone in the NSA said to James, these are winged draconians, this is the only picture in the world, how the hell did you get this? Within a day, the threads were taken down from Godlike Productions, Project Avalon, Alien Earth, everywhere, all threads gone, picture removed.
And you didn't,
I didn't remove it.
but you didn't sort of happen to keep a copy we could sort of sneak in on the edit?
Oh yeah. Of course, yeah. I haven't got it with me, but I could probably... it's probably better off taking a snapshot from one of the YouTube films, because when we upload...
I don't like doing that, the compression and everything else.
Yeah, I know. I'll see what I can do. What I can do. But it was like, you know, people slate a lot of those films from 2007, and what people don't realise is that YouTube only started in 2005 and there was no HD uploading.
Yeah, that's right.
There was no. It was 240 by whatever
that's
it was.
Very true.
People a lot of people don't even realise that, you know. You're trying to show people stuff and there's only a certain resolution that you can give them, and a lot of it was awful, and it was like, well, it's the best we can do for what we've got. So but we uploaded another version of it a couple of years ago and it was a bit clearer, and in one of the still frames there's like an etheric being standing next to the fire brigade or something, and it looks very tall. It looks like 30 foot tall or something, but there's a ball of light behind it in the air. I don't know if that's the same one I saw or not, but it could have been. But then James was saying that, you know, you see this film and you see this plane in the background and there's three guys standing there. And I said to him, when you see these black things, you can see these three humans behind them. And he just laughed at me. And he's pretty much when you said to him, who touched the spear in Scotland, and you said, was it Gridkeeper? And he sort of went laughed. He did that to me when I asked him who those people were standing by the plane. He said, who do you think it was? He said, that's you, so-and-so and so-and-so. I'm like, is it? I don't know. Because like always, I just remember I go somewhere and all I remember is a policeman telling me I shouldn't be here and I've got to leave. You know? So maybe I need regression at some point.
I mean, is this the...
I don't know.
Do they use the same phrase? Is it sort of like a wake-up call?
It could be, yeah.
A wake-up phrase. You shouldn't be here. Yeah. It's time to leave.
It's time to leave. I know. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? You know? Makes you wonder.
Well, what do you think of this whole thing? That's a big question.
It's dragged on a bit. I can tell you that much. I thought I'd know everything by now, but I don't know. I've had a long break from it for quite a few months, which is why I spoke to you, really, because you know I spent years being involved in all these little episodes, chasing my tail.
Yeah, is this your reptilian tail?
So funny. Finding, you know, and then you think you find out all the answers, and then you realise you don't, and something else happens, and I think it was after, you know, I tried to get closure when I went to the police station to talk to them for a few hours, and the things I say, I don't know, if the average person walked into a police station and said to their faces what I said, I don't think they'd let you back out again.
Well, that happens to people. They get sectioned.
I said some outrageous stuff to them, and when I walked
But that's because you got the right people to listen.
Yeah, and when I walked into that police station, I was I was polite and everything, and when the PCs came out to escort us into the room, they, body armour, the guns, handcuffs, you name it, they had it around their belts. And I was like, oh, please to me, no, wouldn't back off, wouldn't touch me. These guys wouldn't touch me. And when they sat me in that room, there was 2 doors. Both doors had to be left open, propped open with fire extinguishers. And while I'm sitting there, every now and again, there'd be people walking past in suits, and they'd stop and look at me, and then walk, and I'd just smile at them. So
you're allowed to see it. You can,
and I don't know who was listening or whatever. I'd imagine there was a room behind us with a load of people sitting there listening to what I was saying. But
I mean, there wouldn't be the old double mirror.
Oh, there was no mirror in the room, but it was obvious it was being recorded. But yeah, I walked out as easily as I'd walked in. None the wiser. But as I said earlier,
what was the point of that? I mean, if they wanted to get the stuff, they just nick it anyway. Is that right? I mean, what did you feel you're going to achieve by doing that?
I didn't know.
You just felt you just needed to do this. I just
wanted something I needed to do, because I'd done it before. There's a story that James spoke about, which our friend will elaborate another time, because it's his story. It's not my story. But there's a story that James spoke about where he says that 2 Delta Force agents were killed in the road, hit by a car, and they had to tie with the red stripe on.
And what's Delta Force? What's that?
Just some American agency that is wrapped up in all this somehow, to do with the time jumping and everything.
Now, what do you mean by the time jumping?
Or the loss of time, So, an incident happened, 2 of these guys were killed. The next day in the paper, the story was different. It said a woman was killed crossing the road by so-and-so coloured car. I saw the pictures. There was 2 bodies. They were men. They were killed by a different coloured van, not a car. And I was pretty irate about this. So I marched into the police station with the news cuttings, slammed them on the counter. And I said to them, what, I know it was a different police force to the area where it happened as well. I knew the funeral director of that area. She went to see the coroner the next day. The coroner said, you back off, don't ever ask about this. And when the 2 bodies were taken from the scene, the police were told to back off. A black van turned up, they were loaded up in it, a military helicopter came over and flew away with it as it drove off. I went into the police station and confronted them, and they just wouldn't speak back to me. And I just told them what I knew. It was wrong, this was a cover-up, blah, blah, blah. Said my piece in a rather, I might have been a little bit rude, but I was just, I was like, well, if you can't trust you, who can you trust? That's where I was coming from. It's funny that when I went back this year, I was the same woman at the counter. Hello.
And she remembered you from last time?
I don't know. They weren't very forthcoming at all. But obviously, I was in there for 3 hours. There's so much that was said that I'm not telling you now, because most of it isn't my story. I was just there. I just wanted to talk about the helicopters, and I said to them, what's with the helicopters and the Navy? And you lot have seen some of this happen. I know you have. And she just kept saying it's classified. But to me, that was, even though I didn't walk away with any answers, just to get someone from the police force telling me that what I'm trying to ask them about that's happened to me is classified, I was happy with that, because it gave me something, and they could have sat there and gone, no, you're a loony.
Or you would have been sectioned and you would be a loony.
They could have sectioned me, but they didn't. I walked out as easily as I'd walked in.
Because it's very dangerous walking into a police station, because you don't have any rights of arrest and all that.
No.
You've voluntarily given up your liberty.
Yeah, I did that. But it felt right to do. It felt like something I had to do. you know.
So how many people were at the meeting? Was it
There was 3 people there. That was it.
you and your
So-
friend?
My friend and this policewoman. And she wasn't a member of CID or anything, which was supposed to be. But I'd imagine they were all sitting in the other room listening, biting their nails.
Well, what about this
Maybe I'll-
secret space program thing? I mean, is it real or what? I mean, you're talking about some other guy there who we'd like to also talk to at some period of time. in his own time,
I hope he'll see this and eventually talk to you. But I thank John Lear for talking to me really about some of this stuff, because I didn't know what it was, you know. But there was 2 or 3 that he said he'd recognised and spoke to other people about. And he said that there was one, it had a triangle on the back, triangle shape, raised up like that, and he had a name for it. And he said that that's one of the ones that the space shuttle drops cargo to on the way to the ISS.
Yeah.
Um,
On its little extended orbit
Yeah.
before it jumped.
but no, I can't.
I think Richard Hoagland used to refer to that. He used to refer to it as a milk round or
Did he?
something.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no, what can I say? It's, you know, yeah, it's filmed from Earth.
Well, in a nutshell, what is the so-called secret space program? What is it about?
No, I can't do that. Because that's just my opinion. And I don't want to say it. Because you're going to open up a huge can of worms for me, Miles.
Now, what do you mean? It's just, the secret space
You know?
program.
Well, it's a secret space program, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
it's not just about
Gary
weapons. It's
McKinnon
not just
found
about
out.
weapons, is it?
You know, Gary McKinnon found out all about that, about the secret.
Well, a lot
massive
of people
core.
think that he saw on the Pentagon files what we were actually filming. But like I've said to you before, I've never signed the Official Secrets Act. Not that I can remember. Yeah, and if I had signed it and I don't remember, I'm sure I wouldn't be.
Well, what are they doing? Are they mining on Mars or what?
Oh, any of that I know as much as you, Miles. Mining and Mars, it's just only what other people have told me or I've read. You know, but a lot of the space program I believed had to do with all this Stargate stuff and what we spoke about earlier about the Stargate conspiracy.
Actually,
with James
gating from
Hurtak.
one universe to another,
Possibly.
or the Stargate. We're
controlling-
referring to.
Manipulation of the Earth grid and the control, and you know, you start.
But that's affecting other dimensions in reality. He's not getting annoyed about it.
Yeah.
This
So
is
am
like
I.
terraforming on a hyperdimensional scale.
Yeah. And you know, I don't know. It's just.
It's been suggested or been told that
It just
certain people
opens
are
up
saying
so
that
many other channels, doesn't it, of interwoven events and things that are happening. You know,
you're talking about timelines.
everything.
Now, what's timelines and everything?
I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there, Miles, really. Because I could talk about stuff like that and I can't offer any proof of anything, and it's stuff that people have probably already heard already. You know?
Well, I haven't heard it for the sake of the tape.
You know?
This is reality management.
Yeah.
Keep on seeing
It's just
lines of force here behind
wouldn't
us.
surprise me. Well, my connection to it was to do with the work on the ley lines and the crop circles and all that sort of thing. What happens on Mars or on the Moon, I don't know. I've shown pictures and video of the Moon. I can't tell you what it is, but I can show you a tower with a big ball on the top, or a crater that where the picture looks completely different to the one NASA showed you. That's all I can show you. I can't tell you what it is.
Were you able to look at this with like an 8-inch or 10-inch Newtonian or what?
8, 10, 16.
So these are things which people can.
Yeah, anyone can do this on the Moon. You know, I've told people say, why don't you the spaceships? Yeah, that's not my life. That's not my story, really. That's not for me to say. But the Moon, I was told how to film the Moon. I actually had one of the telescopes myself, which I've now sold. But But it was no secret. My friend, when he showed me, I said, let me tell people how to do it. And he said, yeah, tell people. And I started telling people, but has anyone else done it?
Well, was this as what
no,
type?
But
well,
why not? And all you
what
need
do
to
you
do,
need to do this? As a
you
celestron
get
of
the
what?
back of your telescope. Me
Yeah.
to the best ones, because the mirrors are very good and they're very steady telescopes. Is get your video camera, get a tube, an aluminium tube, and gaffer tape it between the camera and the telescope. Make different lengths, experiment, try different video cameras. That's it. It's that easy. There's no...
You're talking about replacing
no
the
magic.
optic, the eye optic.
I think
With the camera.
There's certain modern HD cameras where you can leave the lens on it, but on my telescope, we hooked the lens out, so it went straight onto the CCD chip, straight onto the mirror. But you don't even have the lens on the telescope. You don't do that, you know.
And then you have to adjust that in order to focus it.
Yeah, try a different length and stuff. But you go into, talk about conspiracies and stuff. You go into any shop that sells telescopes and you tell them that technique, they'll tell you it won't work. And we did that with one a few miles away, and he was quite adamant that no, it won't work. This is how you have to do it. It only works this way. So we went back in there with film of the moon and some of the other bits and bobs. This was back in 2007. He was actually a Templar, and because I was quite annoyed that he wouldn't believe me, or he was trying to disinfo. So we took this stuff in, and he sat down on his computer and showed him, and he just looked at us and went, one question: why are you still alive? Yeah.
So are you saying that by using the conventional way that astronomers would use, it lowers the resolution in some way that you don't see the
What, for the moon?
Yeah.
I think so, but then you see people with really good SLR cameras taking good pictures of the moon. But then I wonder how close they're actually getting, whether they're taking it from afar and then blowing up the picture. I don't know.
Well, SLRs will have
I've
help.
tried to go on places like Bad Astronomy and talk to these people, and they just start shooting at me. So I don't even go there anymore. Oh yeah, you're that guy. Yeah, you're full of shit. Well,
Yeah.
no, I'm trying to find out what this is.
Well, the astronomers are very keen to make sure you
know.
don't know what's really going on.
Yeah.
Well, John Lear explained to me recently that his 2 grandchildren had been abducted and taken to the moon.
Really?
And I think that was taken separately. But they referred to an octiform life form up there.
Octiform.
8 legs, 4 down each side.
Really?
And a longitudinal body like a mantid.
Wow.
And she wanted to go back.
Really?
When am I going back to the moon, Granddaddy? Or Pappy, or whatever they call it.
It's the first I've heard of anything
Well,
like
this
that, but
is
it wouldn't
something he
surprise
showed
me.
This is something he showed me
Yeah.
from a file in his place in May, I think.
Yeah.
But there definitely is activity up there.
Yeah, the stuff I've seen on the moon, it's just, I don't know, tall towers with balls on the top that look like Tesla towers. Is that natural? I don't know.
Now, okay, if somebody wanted to build one now, you're talking about an 8-inch or a 10-inch Newtonian
Telescope.
reflector.
Yeah.
And you take the eyepiece.
I'm not even an expert on telescopes.
But you take the
telescopes.
eyepiece out.
Yeah. Take
and
the
then-
eyepiece out.
And
Get
you
an
take the
aluminium
lens off
tube.
your video camera.
Yeah. And just gaffer tape them.
Because this is important, because
You know?
the lenses, by removing the lenses, you're also removing a lot of distortion products and things which will fuzz up the picture.
Yeah.
It's not going to be of any benefit.
Yeah. So there's a film. We even filmed the back of the telescope. I think we did it twice. There was one time with the smaller scope, and I'm filming the back of it while he's filming one of these craft, and then I zoom into the star in the sky and then back out and then back to the back, and then there's no tape in it, so it can't be playing anything. The other time we filmed the moon and Saturn, and I'm at the back of the telescope filming it. And even when you put that on YouTube,
I mean,
People
are you
don't-
talking about a refracting telescope? I mean, when you talk about the back of the telescope, that's where the mirror is.
Yeah, the ones from the back.
Yeah.
See, look, I don't know anything about
Well,
names of telescopes,
Yeah, but-
different types, and I've been working with them for years. All I know is I had an 8-inch telescope which I bought off someone. I took the back of it and I did this, and my mate.
So you're
does
talking
it,
one
yeah.
long tube and.
But to see the spaceships, no, that won't let you see the spaceships. That's something else, mate.
You need a really
that's
good.
not from. No, you won't see them, mate. That's not for me to. That's someone else. Like I say, that's someone else's story. That's
Okay.
a big story. And I hope one day, after seeing me, I hope that they're okay with me saying this much to you, which they should be, because anything I've told you now, we've said on the internet already.
Well, what about stuff you haven't said on the internet?
No, I won't talk about stuff that's not my story, because I've seen how it's affected people's lives, you know, when certain things,
Such as, could you explain?
life made difficult, and I wouldn't do that to it. I'm not here to make anyone's life difficult. And, oh look, there's a hot air balloon. Sorry to change the subject, but there's a really hot air balloon just coming over the hill. See it in the distance?
Yeah.
Yeah, where are you standing?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, out there.
Yeah.
I've seen people's lives torn apart by some of this stuff because all they've tried to do is tell the truth. And I wouldn't make that worse for anyone. You know, a lot of people have said to me in the past, "Oh no, but what about everyone in the world that wants to know all this stuff and that?" Well, great, let's put something on the internet just so a load of people want to know, but if it ruins someone's life, well, I don't think that's right. But that person, once they've got through their difficulties, would probably maybe one day come forward and say everything that people really need to know about this subject. And I would like them to do that. But that's not my place, you know. It's not
As
my
they say,
discovery. I
horses
didn't
for
make this
courses.
discovery. I spent many years with this person looking into this, and I was the one that convinced this person to put the stuff on YouTube, you know, which I presented on YouTube. Yeah, which about over 9 million people, I think over 9 million hits on my YouTube channel now, which is probably due to those films, you know. So, yeah, I wish there was more I could tell you about that, but that's not my place, Miles. You know.
Okay, finally, what do you feel of the James Casbolt situation? I mean, what's your?
I need to speak to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to know why he's suddenly been ejected from the family. I know Hayley's parents. Well, her mum was okay, but I know the father really wasn't happy about James. I've not seen Hayley or James for 2.5 years, I think. 2 years? Good 2 years.
And since then, of course, they've had a baby. He's been in the States.
I saw them just before they went back to America. I had dinner with them just before they went back to America.
You were in America.
Sorry? Oh, no, I had dinner with them here in England before they went back to it, when James went over to America to stay there. So when I heard that he had been left at a hotel or whatever, yeah, I was quite shocked about that, because I'd like to know what happened. But when I emailed James, I said, "Are you okay?" He didn't tell me anything really. He just said, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm okay."
Well, that's.
Well, are you? What does that
yeah.
mean, you know?
Yeah.
So hopefully soon I'll get to speak to him.
But what about? I mean, there's new characters which have been brought into this equation. Max Spears, who's another Brit in America.
Yeah.
He's had similar experiences. It's same kind of parallel thing.
You've
There's Sarah
interviewed these
Stanger.
people, haven't you?
Sorry?
You've interviewed these people.
Yes.
Yeah. I've
I spoke at the Super Soldier Summit in May, and
what are we on now? March, April, May. Since February, I've just been on holiday, mate. I've just been enjoying my life.
but I'm interested in these other characters.
I've got a bit of catching up to do. I need to watch your interviews with these people
Right.
and see what they're saying. I've really done nothing, Miles.
But
I've just
to
spent
have
3 months in Ireland.
I mean, for instance, and then there's also Nina, and so there seems to be a very substantial
Yeah.
British input to this whole question, and they all seem to have similar types of evasive stories and things. And
Half of my problem is the gaps. It's like Balmoral Castle. I would love to say to you, yeah, we went under the castle, this happened, that happened. I've got no memory. Everything I told you about Balmoral is everything I remember.
Did you have the
You
black
know?
cube at the front of the head?
A black cube at the front of my head.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or maybe it was a pink cube with polka dots.
I've got no idea.
No?
But this is where, I know James has had regression in the past. I've never had regression.
Would you want to have regression? Do you trust
would.
regression?
But I'd need to find the right person to do it,
But how do you find the right person?
Maybe you could find someone for
Yeah,
me,
well,
Miles.
I'm not too sure about
Have you
regression.
found anyone on your travels?
Yeah.
Because I would like to... I know they say when you have regression, you shouldn't be told anyone else's story of what happened, but, he's told an event of what happened at Balmoral. Will that influence my regression? I don't know, but
Yeah.
it might be worth a shot.
Yeah.
All I know is that I was there. I was in the grounds when I shouldn't have been. I remember.
And you
that.
were politely informed, could you please leave?
and we left. I don't argue with these people.
But how do you get in to leave to start with?
I remember just driving in.
I mean,
Doesn't that sound odd?
I mean,
and then we're at the back of the castle.
there's been no security issues of any kind in the United Kingdom for the last 40 odd years.
We drove in, mate.
Just casually driving in, strangers.
Didn't get stopped by anyone. We just drove in. I'm at the back of the castle being
The
asked
Queen's
to
in there with
The Queen's
President
in there,
Bush and all
Charles, supposedly Princess Anne, Bush and Blair, and we just drove in.
that. And nobody questioned.
Nobody questioned it.
I think somebody must have let you in.
Yeah.
But finally, do you have any final things you want to say today?
No. Thanks for talking to me. I know a lot of people over the years have wanted to see me, or I've spoken a lot on my videos, but no one's ever seen me.
Yeah.
A lot of people think I'm someone else, or I'm not real,
Ooh.
or I'm this, that, or the other. But I don't know. It just these.
So you are Duncan.
Yeah.
The grid keeper.
Yeah. I'm real. Yeah.
And you're related to a few people who've run the country in the past.
Yeah, we ran the country. I say we were the good guys. We were the good guys. When we ran the country, the capital of London, capital of England was Winchester, because we guarded Salisbury Plain. The most sacred bit of land I've ever known. That's my phone.
So okay, you were the importance of Salisbury Plain and why the crop circles. You mentioned the crop circles.
Sacred land. It's electric dielectric. The whole plane is electric dielectric. If you study ley lines, study the ley line maps, look at where they go, look at the geometric shapes, the links to Karnak in Egypt, running through Italy. There's a lot of crop circles in Italy. The ley line goes through the Vatican. Are
those Italian crop circles on the same ley line?
They're in the right area. Yeah, they're in the area.
Because there's very few crop circles in this year.
Yes, there is.
Or rather, there's only 2 that let us see.
There's been some recent ones, hasn't there? But there was a problem. There hasn't been much rain. That doesn't help, because
there's 2 months. We're running 2 months late because of the weather.
You need that electric dielectric layer of Salisbury Plain. When it's fully activated, you need the rain. You really need the rain on it. That makes a lot of difference.
And this is for the orbs to come up.
Orbs to come up.
Come from the ground, or do they come up from above?
On an interdimensional level, it helps the connection. It helps get things done. makes any sense.
So I suppose we're going to want more rain.
Yeah, I don't. So I'm getting covered in bugs because it's that
Yeah.
time in the year. It's making me very itchy
Well,
on my ears. But it balance. It's just keeping balance, Miles. You know, I've been involved in that side of it for years. I've made videos about ley lines. I've said a lot of secrets in my videos. There's certain things at a certain level that I don't talk about because when you play poker, you don't show your cards. You just don't do it. So I don't do that. But I just play the game of balance. That's all I've ever tried to do, really. You know?
well, that's what it's all about, balance.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much indeed. We'll put this together. It'll be part of
Cheers.
Basis 23.
Maybe sometime we'll do a follow-up when the others.
Well, if we can put all that together in one go.
Together. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll wrap up.
Okay.
Wrap up and we'll I'll bring you down the road, is that right?
Yes.